Chuck Schumer plays partisan politics with children's lives. Welcome to another installment of the Connecticut Gun Bench. Today's video is brought to you by P.A.N. Firearms, LLC. P.A.N. Firearms for your NRA certification and multifaceted gun training. Also offering aerial photography and drone services. You can reach us at 203-300-6343 or use our website at www.panfirearmsllc.com. As always, there'll be a link in the description box below. And we are going to talk about this here. In the wake of the Uvalde tragedy, in a bipartisan vote, both the Congress has passed forward what they called S-111. It's called the Luke and Alex School Safety Act of 2021. This was this came out after the Parkland. It's named after two of the victims of the Parkland tragedy. It has been sitting in the House for some time, and with the event in Uvalde, it has now been bipartisan, with bipartisan action has been brought forward. Now, basically, in summary, what it does is the bill requires the Department of Homeland Security to establish a federal clearinghouse on school safety best practices for use by state and local educational and law enforcement agencies, institutions of higher education, health professionals, and the public. The bill requires DHS to collect clearinghouse data analysis, user feedback on the implementation of best practices and recommendations identified by the clearinghouse, and any evaluations conducted on these best practices and recommendations. In addition, DHS must coordinate with the Department of Education, Health and Human Services, and Justice to assess and identify best practices and recommendations and establish an advisory board to provide feedback and propose additional recommendations. So basically, it is a clearinghouse, or it's going to be a website where you can go, where educators can go, justices and so forth, your health and human services, and they can look and get recommendations on how better to secure their school. Sounds very good. And it came through this Congress with bipartisan support, both sides. Then it goes to the Senate, and Chuck Schumer blocked the bill. Now, let me just play a video here of him talking about this, and then I'm going to tear him apart, because there's just no excuse for this. But let's watch here.
All we hear from Republicans are thoughts, prayers, and now there's a new phrase. Now, some of my Republican colleagues want to lift up the community. That sounds heartening, but it does absolutely nothing to prevent the next family from having to grieve for their loss. And it won't do a single damn thing to prevent another life from being taken. It won't do a single damn thing to prevent another child from being shot at school, a 9-year-old, a 10-year-old, an 11-year-old, beautiful children. And Madam President, you may have noticed that when they aren't offering thoughts and prayers to distract from their inaction, many of my Republican colleagues focus on the motives of the shooters instead of focusing on the obvious common denominator. They talk about the real villain being mental illness and say nothing of the fact that we are a nation suffocated by fire.
You heard that. Now, notice how he says to protect these beautiful children. This is the same person who thinks that abortions should be on demand for whatever reason you want, at any time you want. But yeah, so you see, do I have to point out how stupid that sounds? Okay? I guess children are only beautiful after they leave the womb, not before. Obviously, that's another adventure, but he's just using these people for his own ends of means, because I'm going to get into the nitty-gritty of why he did this. He blocked this bill to force the GOP to consider his domestic terrorism bill that came out after the Buffalo shooting, which the GOP blocked. So he's playing partisan politics. He's putting children's lives in danger for nothing more than politics. Now, let's go right over here. I'm going to go to this Fox News article. Schumer blocks Senate GOP school safety bill, angering Republicans. "You're a liar and a hack," Senator Rick Scott tweeted to Schumer after he blocked Luke and Alex School Safety Act. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Democrat in New York, on Wednesday blocked a school safety bill that has Republicans crying foul. After the horrific mass shooting at Uvalde, Texas elementary school that killed 19 children and 2 teachers, Senator Ron Johnson, Republican, Wisconsin, asked for the Luke and Alex School Safety Act to be passed by unanimous consent. The bill, named after the Parkland, Florida shooting victims, Luke Hoyer and Alec Schechter, would require the Department of Homeland Security to establish a federal clearinghouse on school safety best practices for use by state and local educational and law enforcement agencies, institutions of higher education, health professionals, and the public. And it would require DHS to collect clearinghouse data and analytics, user feedback on the implementation of best practices and recommendations identified by the clearinghouse, and any evaluations conducted on these best practices and recommendations. The clearinghouse, which is already available at schoolsafety.gov, so it is a website and it's up and running, would be codified into law with the bill's passage. Schumer objected to Johnson's request, claiming on Twitter that the bill could see more guns in schools. Quote, "The truth. There were officers at the school in Texas," Schumer tweeted. "The shooter got past them. We need real solutions. We will vote on gun legislation, starting with the Domestic Terrorism Prevention Act." He's pushing that Terrorism Act in response to Buffalo, specifically because the guy was some, self-proclaimed white supremacist, without acknowledging the fact that he also called himself a left-wing authoritarian. But on the Senate floor, Schumer said the legislation could be considered if Republicans agree to debate on the domestic terrorism bill. There it is. He is playing, this is literally extortion. Literally extortion at the expense of children at school. Johnson responded that it's a sad day for the United States, the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel reported. Johnson later tweeted, "Not surprising that the Democrat leader would lie about the bill. He blocked the parents of Parkland victims have been trying to pass for years. Dems aren't looking for solutions. They want wedge issues that they hope will keep them in power." Sick. Preach. Truth there. Senator Rick Scott, Florida, who co-sponsored the bill, blasted Schumer as a liar and a hack. Senator Marco Rubio, Republican Florida, who also co-sponsored the bill, tweeted, "The truth. Schumer blocked a bipartisan bill that makes the school safety clearinghouse, schoolsafety.gov, permanent because the radical left-wing activists oppose it." Meanwhile, the Senate is set to vote Thursday on whether to advance the Domestic Terrorism Prevention Act, which passed the House last week after the Buffalo mass shooting that killed 10 people. That bill would require the domestic terrorism components of the DHS, Department of Justice, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation to jointly report on domestic terrorism, as well as create an interagency task force to analyze and combat white supremacists and neo-Nazi infiltration of the uniformed service and federal law enforcement agencies. Okay, so I'm staying with this paragraph here because the Domestic Terrorism Act is basically the White Supremacist Act. Now, they're not talking about BLM. Once again, you do these left-wing groups that have committed heinous violence that we have watched over the last few years aren't even a consideration in this domestic terrorism bill. It's all about white supremacy and neo-Nazis, and to supposedly go after those who are supposedly white supremacists who are within the government or within the military, so forth, which basically means they're just trying to use this as a filter to get people out of the way that might object to some future plan they may have. Because that's what it sounds like to me. But as I said before, Schumer is using the school safety bill, which passed with bipartisan support, which means Democrats and Republicans said, let's get this thing through. He blocked it just so he could get his little pet project, domestic terrorism bill, through. But the domestic terrorism bill was blocked, which is being forced. Now they're forcing it. They blocked it. The Senate GOP blocked the domestic terrorism bill to open a gun debate. I got a little video of that. I'm just going to play a little bit of this just to get an idea.
So, Madam President, if Republicans obstruct debate today, we are prepared to have an honest and realistic discussion, conversation, negotiation, for a little more time to see what they can come to the table with.
Mr. Schumer.
We might be able to bring this up at some future point, so...
You can't talk. Just say no.
No.
Mr. Schumer, no.
Okay, so you heard that. Now, you just heard, S-111 is named after two of the victims of the Parkland shooting. And one of the victims' fathers is literally blasting Schumer for blocking it. And I got the article here, New York Post. Parkland Vic's dad blasts Schumer for heartbreaking school safety bill block. The father of victim of the 2018 school shooting in Parkland, Florida, ripped Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer this week after he blocked a school safety bill named in the victim's honor, calling it the move heartbreaking. On Wednesday, one day after the shooting at an elementary school in Uvalde, Texas, that killed 19 children and 2 teachers, Senator Ron Johnson, Republican, Wisconsin, pushed for the Luke and Alex School Safety Act to be passed via unanimous consent. The legislation named after Luke Hoyer and Alex Schechter, who were both killed in the shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, would require the Department of Homeland Security to establish a federal clearinghouse on school safety best practices website. Now, we already know all about that, but I'm going to go ahead and move down. GOP Senator Johnson just tried for a bill, this is Chuck Schumer speaking, that could see more guns in schools. I blocked it. The truth, there were officers at the school in Texas. The shooter got past them. We still don't know the truth behind whether or not officers were physically present. Or if the resource officer, we heard there was a resource officer there, and then we heard another story there wasn't one there. We still don't know for sure what happened there, but he's already made his own decisions. We need real solutions. We will vote on gun legislation starting with the Domestic Terrorism Prevention Act. Schumer blocked the legislation, claiming it will put more guns in school. GOP Senator Johnson just tried for a bill that would see more guns in school. I blocked it, the majority leader tweeted. Here we go again, the truth, there were officers at the school in Texas. The shooter got past them. We need real solutions. How does a website put guns in school? It's ridiculous. It has nothing to do with guns. Max Schechter, Alex's father, told Fox Digital News in response. It's just a website of best practices. It doesn't mandate anything. I thought that after 19 children and 2 teachers were murdered in Uvalde, Texas, partisan politics would be put aside and the families might at least have some positive news out of Congress from their elected leaders. I was naive to think that a horrible mass shooting would make people do the right thing, Schechter added, and unfortunately, he didn't. He blocked it. It's heartbreaking. Schumer blocked the Luke and Alex School Safety Act to push a doomed vote on another piece of legislation, the Domestic Terrorism Prevention Act, which GOP has already said they're going to block it, which passed the House after a racially motivated May 14 shooting at a Buffalo grocery store that left 10 dead. That bill failed to garner enough votes to move to a debate amid GOP opposition to provisions granting additional powers to the FBI, Justice Department, and Department of Homeland Security. Everybody and their brother would have told you that the GOP was going to block it, which they did today. And so now, where are we? Schechter said, accusing Schumer of using legislation named after his son as leverage. That's exactly what he's doing. The Republicans don't want to give the Democrats a win, but the Democrats don't want to give the Republicans a win either. That's the problem with partisan politics in general. And then who suffers? The American people. It's ridiculous. They should do their damn job. Not surprising that the Democrat leader would lie about the bill he blocked that parents of Parkland victims have been trying to pass for years. Dems aren't looking for solutions. They want wedge issues that will keep them in power sick. That's Senator Ron Johnson's tweet. Johnson also slammed Schumer over his maneuver. Not surprising that the Democrat leader would lie about the bill he blocked that parents of Parkland victims have been trying to pass for years, the Wisconsin senator tweeted Wednesday. Dems aren't looking for solutions. They want wedge issues that they hope will keep them in power. All week, Democratic lawmakers have urged Schumer to call a vote on bipartisan bills passed in the House that would expand background checks on would-be gun owners, even if it ends up just being an accountability vote. Schumer opted against the show vote this week, claiming the American people already know where each member stands on the issue of gun reform. Instead, he has punted the issue until after the Senate returns from its Memorial Day break, June 6, to give senators more time to come to a compromise. If these negotiations do not bear any fruit, the Senate will vote on gun safety legislation when we return, he vowed Thursday. Both bills will need 60 votes to pass, a near impossible goal for any gun reform bill in an evenly split Senate. But it's not about that. It's about Schumer fighting for his domestic terrorism bill to give more power to the Department of Homeland Security, Department of Justice, and the FBI. And as I said, they're going to use it as a filter to then go accusing. It's almost like McCarthyism, because they're just going to start accusing certain people of being a white supremacist within the military, within the government, to then weed them out, as I said before, to make sure that they have people in place who probably will do whatever they want. A whole nother subject that I can get into. But Schumer is playing partisan politics, and he's playing that partisan politics at the expense of children. The first thing, we had two just absolutely horrible situations go down in a very short time. And your first maneuver is, let's harden the schools. We can argue about gun control later. Let's do this first. Do this first, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about gun control. Let's set rules nationally. When the kids are in school and school is in session, all doors are locked. There's going to be a school resource officer on station at every school. It's just simple things, but Schumer, because of his whole foray into beautiful children, are using those beautiful children's lives as a political leverage tool, and it's disgusting. But let me know what you think. As always, you can leave your comments in the comment section below. And as always, any statements of violence or statements that lead to violence will be removed. Please like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you get notified the next time the video goes live. I will see you on the next one. Peace.